have, oh, get our attendees in. Do my screen share. Wonderful. We got everybody coming in. Got 2 phone calls.
Great.
And I will do, George, I will do Christiana's part today.
Thank you. I meant to ask you that earlier.
I would do, yeah, I figured.
All right.
Welcome, everyone. We'll get this, everybody's still coming in. We'll get this started in just a moment. Welcome. I'm gonna go down. Welcome, everyone. We're getting several people in. Want to welcome you all. I have a question already.
Virginia.
Q&A. Here's our questions here. Virginia, the panelists cameras will come on. The cameras for everyone else don't. It saves on bandwidth space, but when it's time for you guys to ask questions, we'll allow you to go on, and there we go. All right. We have 85 people registered and 33 have come on so far. So we'll give it just a couple more minutes just to make sure that we have everybody in before we start. Please forgive me. I have COVID. I will be probably pausing, or not pausing, but muting myself on occasion. Oh, good, we got here. Everybody's co-host, good. I can share my screen. All right, it looks like it's slowed down for the people entering, so we want to go ahead and start the meeting.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. So it is 10:03. Let's start our meeting. Let's do a roll call. Taylor.
Taylor does the roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So George Brazil.
Here.
Hutan Hamadani.
Here.
Carol Lampkins.
Here.
Patricia Johnson.
Here.
Eduardo Melgar.
Oops, he shouldn't be on there.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wait, is he supposed to be on here? Okay.
Sorry.
Karen Menches.
Here.
Deborah Ogden.
Here.
Taylor Stead. Here. Linda Thomas.
I don't see her yet.
And then Christiana White is not here. So.
Great, thank you.
Roll call.
Awesome. Let's go on to approving the meeting minutes from our last meeting, Taylor.
All right, so I make a motion to the board to approve the September 18th, 2021 board meeting minutes. Can I get a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Hutan. Any discussion? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Meeting minutes approved.
Thank you, Taylor. Rose, are you okay to move on to the treasurer's report?
I am. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right. Getting there. Hold on just one second.
Okay.
So we have our profit and loss statement from 2021. It shows that we had total income of $250,795, so is listed as our gross profit. Our expenses were 251, 459. And then we also had what they call net income or other income, which was our PPP loan. So that was an additional 27. So we were positive by, or 28,340 was the PPP loan. So that means our net income was 27,675.80 for last year. And again, this is our balance sheet just showing that what we have in our checking and savings, we don't have a savings checking accounts. And then we don't have any outstanding bills or things, or we don't do accounts receivable because we're on a cash basis. So these are our liabilities and equities, which is 86,301. And then on the next sheet shows the actual budget for the whole year of what we expected and what we brought in. So we budgeted to our income to be 276,470, and it actually was 279,135. These numbers here are just my monthly numbers. So the 270, the negative 265, that was the overage that we had. So the 279,135 includes the PPP loan. So we did really well for the year. We went over with the PPP loan. We went over. So our annual dues and expenses, we budgeted 275,800, and we actually spent 251,459. And most of that is when we see for the year that things are getting kind of tight, we kind of try and not spend as much as we did. So most everything was spot on except for some of the extra areas. So we were under on our budget. So for the year, so we brought in more than we thought and we put out less than we thought. So we did well. Next, I'm going to make a motion for the board to approve the fiscal year 2022 proposed budget. Can I get a second for that?
I second it, Carol.
Okay. Is there any discussion? We can bring up the budget. This is where we can talk about it.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay. So this is the budget, and I went off of kind of based off of the last couple of years, since we won't be getting a PPP loan this year, but things have started to pick up. I made the budget as in what we should be expecting to get in on a normal year based off of the prior years. So does anybody have any questions on the income portion of this? Now we
Rose,
do.
are you going to show that on your screen as you're going through? We're still seeing tab 2 treasurer's report, right?
Deborah, you should have your, we don't show all this because it's not been voted and approved yet. It doesn't get shown to everyone else. You should be having your binder open that you were sent.
Okay, thanks.
So.
And
anyhow.
so, Rose, just to clarify, this budget is sort of based on what a sort of typical, let's say, non-COVID year would be based on the current cycle that we're in, correct?
Correct. A modified, because we aren't fully out of COVID again
Right,
yet. So it's less than it would be, but it's
Okay.
more than, you know, because our numbers have been going back up again. So it's kind of a middle of the road there. We based off of, you know, what the typicals are and then what we've seen with COVID and kind of combined them. That makes sense.
Great. Yes,
and
absolutely.
We do break it down individually, but in each section by early renewals. But it's so hard to gauge what it really will be. This is kind of what we have seen in the past, but yeah. Sometimes people like to pay early renewals more than they like to pay the late, you know, regular fees, and sometimes it switches. So this is a guesstimate based off of previous experiences.
Sure. Great.
Anybody else have a question about this? we'll move on to the expenses. So this is expenses based on what we've been paying for the last several years. And we do allow for, there's the rent will go up and there's always increases in payroll and et cetera. So this is taking account for all of those.
Great.
We will be paying, there's two expenses that are included in here. The IDEX exam right now is being reviewed by ICC for the code updates, since the code updates just went into effect. So it's being reviewed. So we'll be paying both Scantron and ICC for that. And also our classes that we offer for the commercial designation will be updated as well. So there will be a fee for that. So that's why we have IDEX expenses the way we do.
So sorry, are those IDEX exam fees, does that cover both IDEX and ICC?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's very reasonable.
ICC was very reasonable. So yeah, it's not because we just went through the whole review and did
of
everything that we
course.
did. It's actually just a small process that we're going through.
Wonderful.
Okay. So we want to, any other questions? All right, so we want to continue, take a vote. All in favor to approve the 2022 budget, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Anyone abstaining? All right, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Rose.
Next, we have a motion to approve the 2020 financial statements. I make a motion for the board to approve the audited financial statements for the fiscal year 2020. Can I get a second?
Tricia.
Patricia, second?
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion? I'll just let you know that this was our audit done by, that we do every year, came in, there was no questions or anything to be concerned about. And once this is approved, then it will get posted on the website for everybody to see. Each year the audit seems to get a little easier because we try and improve anything that they ask us to do. We try and improve on it. So the process has gotten a lot easier than previously. So they didn't have anything major concern. Does anybody else have any questions about this?
No, I mean, the letter that they sent, I mean, clearly it was a very clean audit and obviously there were no issues coming up, so.
Yeah. So yeah, it like I said, the process is usually very easy. We send them all the information, we allow them into our QuickBooks, everything, so that they can make sure that everything is running the way it's supposed to.
Mhm.
So there was nothing glaring or any things that they asked us to really change. So, okay. Can I get a vote to approve the 2020 audited financial statements? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Wonderful, thank you, Rose. Give me 1 second, let me get through this and we'll go on to the next topic, which is the compliance index report.
IDEX report.
IDEX, sorry.
Hang on just a second. Let me get there we go. Okay, compliance report. This is the numbers for where we are as of January 20. It's actually end of the year. But for this meeting, we have 1,646 current CIDs. We have 3,415 CIDs that are no longer active and 410 that are delinquent. Just for everybody's information, the reason that we list the delinquent separately is because a lot of times people will pay late and they're not in that completely expired state yet. So they're kind of floating, I just like to say. So that's why they're not included with either current or no longer active, because they're kind of in that middle section. So total number certified was 5,471.
Great.
Again, you can see that there were 410 people total delinquent. Of that, 133 were delinquent starting 2021. We don't have currently anyone on a payment plan. 1,330 people are expired. So that means that it's past that 4-year mark for them. So they're no longer in a delinquent status. It's after 4 years, and they would need to start the process again in order to become certified. 39 people became expired in 2021. 316 people are resigned. So of that, 45 people resigned because of business reasons, or no longer in the business. Their business isn't flourishing, that sort of reason. We have 215 people that have moved out of California and have not renewed because of that reason. And then there's 57 people that have resigned because they've requested to. They no longer wish to be certified. 1,700 people have retired. 72 people are on the emeritus status. Unfortunately, we have lost 69 people. And so there's our numbers again, the no longer active and current, and that these numbers are all come from the numbers that I just read to you. That's how we come up with the numbers that we have.
So Rose, just so I'm reading this clearly, and these charts have always confused me, I'm sorry. Under total retired, so in January 21, we had 1,460 CIDs that were retired, and it has increased 240 CIDs over the past year that have just retired.
Yes.
Okay, so, and is that number, that 1,700, does that include the number that have resigned, or that's a different number?
No, it's a different number. These are all separate categories. The only thing is resigned is broken out for you, so you see why they've resigned.
Okay.
And expired, how many people, that sort of thing. So
because when I'm looking at the very top number of the total current, and I see like we're at almost 300 CID drop from 21 to 22, but now I see why. Is
exactly,
there was a huge number of people that retired, and then if you add that to the people that have resigned, I mean, that's almost our total there. So it's not necessarily that people have just dropped off,
right,
lost faith, or decided that it wasn't worth it. It's because of other reasons.
exactly. And that's why we try and track that, is to see why. And we have a survey for people. When we contact them with emails and letting them know, hey, you're about to expire, or you're about to become delinquent. And if you're not going to renew, would you please let us know? Also, last year, we did the 30-year anniversary opportunity for people to come back and pay their fees without the penalty fees. And in those contacts, we contact everybody who is delinquent. So that's a lot of the time. And added in that is, please fill out the survey. Let us know if you're not going to. Why? Is there a reason we can help with, or a reason that you're just done with us? Let us know so that we can keep track of these things. And that's where we get the numbers. And that's how a lot of the finding out a lot of people have retired and those jumps in numbers, that's where it comes from.
Wonderful.
Okay. So the IDEX report, you can see from the October test, the end of the year, we'd received 47 applications. 12 people had been approved and certified. I'm not sure about that number, but yes, no, there's more than that. Sorry. Oh, that was for the out of the October exam. That's what it was. We have 13 Path 2 people that are pending payment. We have 52 Path 1 people. So the reason there's so many of the Path 1 people is they've taken the IDEX exam, and now we're waiting for them to give us the proof that they've completed their minimum qualifications. So we hold their information until they are able to prove that. So that's why that number is much larger. 207 people pending IDEX examination. 43 people were awaiting additional documentation. Excuse me. We have 53 fails needing to reschedule. We do contact these people and let them know. So we're just waiting for them to do the reschedule. From the October exam, there were 6 people that were no-shows and yet to reschedule. And then there's 67 people that have completed their paperwork and for whatever reason, they haven't scheduled the exam yet. And then we have 38 people scheduled for the IDEX, or were scheduled for the October IDEX. So again, you could just see here, candidates applied. From the exam itself, 5 people transferred out, 5 people didn't attend. So we had 28 people attend, 24 passed, 86% pass rate.
Wow.
Yeah, there's 4 people that failed and failed scheduled for retake. 3 people have actually rescheduled and paid their fees to sit for the next exam. So which the numbers here are actually pretty okay because we just rolled out the new exam. So I know there were some grading, I don't want to say any kind of curve, it wasn't a curve. We had to look at the numbers of everything to set that score. We have not set the final cut score yet. That we're in the process of doing that. That's something that's still working on, and that will be set for the next exam. They set the cut score for the October exam based on past references. So there was a committee that worked on that, but the committee will be working, there's a new committee that will be working on setting the cut score from now on.
Great.
All right, so now we can go on to marketing and I can mute.
Awesome. Perfect. You could take a break, take a sip. So marketing has been a little challenging, but one thing that we want to plan for 22 really is the idea of reaching out to our current CIDs, reaching out to our potential future CIDs. What we want to make sure is that aside from administering IDEX and certification, what other values can we offer our CIDs? And that's really something that we're working on. I have on my list here to review social media promoter. You know, social media is its own beast. And again, it's what sort of messaging is going to be beneficial to our CIDs, what's going to provide value. And maybe Rose can talk a little bit about the 30-year anniversary promotion. I know that we did a promotion for our 30th anniversary where people can renew before the new fees or the new fee increases. Was there more to that, Rose?
Well, the 30-year anniversary special, we're going to be running the whole year. So when we send out our initial invoices, when we also have the coupon code, instead of it being $25 that it usually is for this year, we're giving a $30 coupon. So that's one of the items that we're doing for the year. We're also, we've rebranded. I don't know if anybody has seen, but we have new logos. We have, if you look on the website, things are a little different. We've kind of just brought some things up to date for the 30 years. So we're just trying to rebrand. We're trying to bring just everything more current. I think that's it. As far as reviewing social media promoter, what we want to do there is we've used the same company for the last several years. We want to look and see if there's really value added into that and how can we change that to make it more value added with, you know, the price of money that we're spending. So these are just some of the things that the marketing committee is looking at for marketing purposes. We are also talked about having sponsorships. You know, we budget for a lot of the things that we do, but there's a lot of things people call and ask all the time, how can we spend money or how can we help you without, you know, paying extra on our fees? And so we wanted to be able to give sponsorship opportunities. A little bit later, you'll see a sheet that we've done there for some ideas. People can sponsor people to take an IDEX exam. People can sponsor some of the doing a CEU, providing for this CIDs. They can help with the annual business meeting fees. There's just different levels of things that they can help with. They're always asking how they can do that. We wanted to just make a platform for that, for everyone, to make it a lot easier.
You know,
So
and the key for, I mean, I see the sponsorship as being beneficial in two ways. Obviously, allowing our CIDs to have some exposure maybe to some new resources, right? Or to some possible networking opportunities. Yet I also see it as a way for us to generate funds so that we can put on some of these programs that we want to do to provide more value to our CIDs or to our students considering becoming CIDs. You know, and part of that really comes down to our marketing and what our messaging is, because I see we have three separate messages that we want to get out. We need to message to our students so that they know who we are and what that value is. We need to send out messaging to our current CIDs and professionals that are not CIDs. And then also messaging to our stakeholders so they understand and continue to learn about our value. So those are things that we will be working on as far as our marketing goes. So yeah, that is where we are with marketing. Rose, do you want to move on to the next tab?
yeah, we're going to move on. We want to get, we have a guest speaker, so I want to get to the next tab, and then we will do a question and answer because I see that there's a couple of questions. So let's go ahead and get on to that.
Okay.
So as you can see, we've received some articles, we've read some articles that were put out by AIA National regarding their position on, you know, you can see here, you guys can all read, diversifying the profession, changing their position on how they view certification and licensure for interior designers. So I've asked Mark Christian, who is a representative from AIA California. We had a nice conversation. He was very helpful and knowledgeable about their AIA California's position. And so I'm gonna, I will leave this up here, but I'm gonna ask Mark if we can get him on to speak about these articles so that he can just give us a little bit more insight. Mark's a great wealth of knowledge when it comes to these things. So Mark, I'm gonna hopefully get you in here. Oh, wrong one. I missed, sorry. I'm going to allow him to speak here. Just 1 second. Are you still on here, Mark? I hope. There you are. Everyone, welcome Mark Christian from AIA California.
Thank you, Rose. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
I put on a nice pressed dress shirt for no reason this morning, but I feel professional, so this is good. Rose, thank you. CCIDC Board of Directors, thank you for having me. Mark Christian, I am on staff with the AIA California as Director of Government Relations. Rose asked me to talk about the recently modified AIA policy and what that may mean in California. So first of all, I may be saying something you already know, but I think it's important to lay out this context, what AIA is. AIA is a three-tiered organization. We have our national component, we have the various state components. I'm with AIA California, and we have local components. And I'm sure many of you know AIA San Diego, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera. We are all related, yet we are all separate. We have separate corporate structures. We have separate board of directors, separate bank accounts, but we're all related in the AIA family. what is expected, for example, as part of this relationship, is that when a state component becomes a part of AIA, it agrees to follow the policies established by AIA National, that we will not deviate from those policies. So when AIA National has a policy, for example, in opposition to interior design practice acts, it is expected that all 54, the 50 states plus Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, DC, there may be another one I forget, that they all abide by that policy. Well, the reality is the state components are going to do what's right for the state components, because all politics is local, if I may phrase it that way. So this change in the AIA policy regarding interior design, I view it more as a modification of the policy to recognize what happens in the real world. There are states that probably do things that regarding this issue that are not in strict compliance with the AI policy. North Carolina, AI North Carolina, for example, I don't know if they supported or went neutral with an Interior Design Practice Act in North Carolina a year or 2 years ago. You all probably know this better than I do, and they did that for reasons that were unique to North Carolina. They were going to, technically they're in violation of AI policy, but they did what was right for North Carolina. So this modification of AI policy, removing the mandate that all state components automatically, without question, oppose Interior Design Practice Act efforts, for example, it's a modification to recognize that state components are going to do what is right for state components. So it's, again, I think it's more of an update to reflect what is happening in the real world with the family of AIA, with the relationship between AI National and the state components. What does this mean in California? Until our board of directors, the 50 or so architects who comprise our board of directors from all parts of the state, until they change the policy, AI California policy regarding licensure of interior design, or what is included in Business and Professions Code 5538, the commercial TI exemption, until our board of directors makes any change in policy, we are unchanged. We completely and totally support CCIDC. We will support CCID in its sunset review, which I believe is this year. I will be proud to sit next to Rose when it's my turn and say, please extend the sunset date on the sunset review. It provides a valuable consumer service in demonstrating a minimum set of knowledge for consumer protection. And you know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I'm getting a little tongue twisted on the words here. But if there are efforts to place in statute specific elements that interior designers can perform to what we would argue, and I know that CCIDC would probably argue differently, would be an expansion of 5538, we will continue to oppose that, as we have in the past, up until a point our board of directors, if it ever does, changes the AIA California position on those matters. And for you all to know, as a part of our normal review of policies, I believe this year we are going to be looking at our historical position regarding interior design, and in part prompted by AI National, what they've done just to make sure that AI California still, our policies represent the opinions of the membership as represented through the board of directors. And we are going to be establishing a task force, if I may call it that, to review our positions and to make recommendations to our board of directors. And I believe this will happen this year. And this is just in the beginning phases of this being created. So we are going through that, but just to clarify, and Rose, please, or any of the board members, please ask me questions if you have any, but the main point is the change in the AI policy is recognizing that states can make their own, state components can make their own decisions regarding interior design or any other, non-architect engagement in the design field. And at this point, AIA California's positions, as it has been for the past, I don't know how many years, remains the same.
Well, it's good to hear. Thank you very much, Mark, for speaking. We appreciate that. And we'll definitely get to some questions. We have questions from the audience as well. We have had meetings, stakeholder meetings, and Mark and his board members have graciously attended. And we've, Mark, one of the things, if you could correct me, that was an issue was the education level or the level of education of interior designers. And that was coming into question as a possible reason why AIA California has had the view that they have on the why they would or would not support any of the language changes that have been proposed in the past. Do you still see that as something that is a portion of it, or what do you see as a way to work forward to possibly getting these changes? Because we, of course, do not want to expand upon 5537 or 5538. We want to work within that. We just want to make sure that what is allowed under that is listed or stated. That's the only thing that's changing, not expanding upon those. But do you agree, or is there another thing that you might say of why your board feels that interior designers they wouldn't recommend this for interior designers to clarify the language?
Thank you, Rose. Two things. One, I would welcome the opportunity to try to, I'd welcome the opportunity to arrange another meeting between CIDs and AIA members to have those discussions. I believe I'm not an architect.
Right.
I think some of these discussions are best handled by the professionals who are engaged in the real world, making a living doing this. Yes, our members have expressed concerns, which is why we have opposed efforts to specify specific elements that can be performed by non-licensed individuals, whether they are CIDs or not, through changes in 5538, so that I could, next weekend start doing it without any training whatsoever. But there's concern that many of these, such as I believe horizontal egress is one of the ones that was sought to be included specifically in 5538, is that the training of non-architects is not holistic, does not include the whole aspect of the building, and may not be aware of all the things that need to be considered. Again, I'm not licensed. I'm not going to be able to explain this as well as a practicing architect can. And as such, I would be happy to see if my members would be willing to sit down with CID members to continue that conversation. I am sure if I tried to explain it in too much detail, I'd probably cause some of you to get looks of confusion going on. What the heck is Mark talking about? And hence, I'd be happy to try to arrange a meeting with licensed architects to discuss that.
Yes, definitely.
And there may be some listening right now who are probably raising their hands who might give this a shot better than an answer better than I can, Rose.
Right. Thank you. There probably are. So we'll get to the questions and then we can discuss this a little further. So it sounds like AIA is more restrictive than the recent announcement in policy change by NCARB, correct? That I think that it's really just up to the states now, as Mark said. What they were stating is AIA National and NCARB, which, if for everyone to know, AIA is a professional organization, much in the way ASID or IIDA are. So they are, they're not technically a government agency. They do, there are aspects of it. They work with them, but they're the group that of architects, again, you can liken it to ASID or IIDA. And NCARB is the accrediting body that provides the test for architects. So that's something totally different, and AIA's stance would be separate from NCARB because they're two different types of entities. Correct, Mark? Did I say that correctly?
Yes, that is correct. AI is a professional association comprising individual architects who voluntarily join. NCARB is an organization comprising every licensing board in the 50 states, plus Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, DC. And so that is the body of the licensing boards, and that is the body that puts out the ARE's architectural registration exams so that there's a national standard throughout all US jurisdictions.
Correct. All right. Is anyone else have any questions? I need to stop my share for just a second to see if there's any hand raises. I did answer the one that was written. Does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to ask? You can raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak. Patricia, go ahead.
Hello, Mark. I'm Patricia, I'm also on the board. I'm a former fire marshal, and I worked particularly at UC Davis campus for over 12 years in the acting role for the state fire marshal, let's say compliance. We had in-house architects as well as outside architects come and do projects on the campus. I guess my question is, based on the NCARB willing to strike the language that's held the interior design field back for so long, how open do you feel the architects in California, the AIA group of California, would be to, how encouraged should we feel at this moment that they may actually agree with the NCARB's direction?
Well, NCARB, the National Council of Architecture Registration Boards, allowed its policy in opposition to new practice acts to expire. So NCARB is no longer opposed to, for example, the practice acts for interior designers.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they support it. A lot of this, I believe, was internal politics within NCARB. There are many of their member boards. Again, NCARB is made up of the licensing boards of all US jurisdictions. Some of those boards have jurisdiction over interior design. In those states where there is a practice act for interior design, that licensing board has jurisdiction over that, and that licensing board is a member of NCARB. So I think they thought it would be best if they get out of that and let that be a decision up to the individual states where scope of practice is in fact established, and it's established based upon what is right for that state. AI California, I suspect, my members, those who make up leadership, and that leadership in talking with the practitioners out there are not that, we have roughly 11,000 members in AI California, somewhere between 10 and 11,000. Our board of directors will make a decision that reflects the opinions of the membership of AI California. That they certainly would consider that NCARB has removed its opposition. I assume they will consider the reasons why NCARB removed its opposition to the establishment of new practice acts. They certainly will consider the change in AI policy and the reasons for the AI policy, and they will make the decision based upon, we would hope, the opinions of the AI members, again, around 10 to 11,000 individual architects, and those on path to become architects.
So do you have?
I think, and Patricia, I'm sorry, I'll be real quickly. I think it would be helpful for there to be an engagement between the two sides, member to member engagement.
Okay, okay, that would
Definitely.
be your suggestion then.
Mark, we have a question for you. What is the criteria used by AIA California to determine what is right for the state? What?
There's no particular checklist that we follow for every single issue that comes up. It is what is right, hopefully, for the protection of the health, safety, welfare of the public. And what are the qualifications to do that? That is first and foremost how it is viewed. Is this good or is it not good for the public?
Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate your insight, Mark, and we definitely will meet again to continue this conversation. And then we'd also, if possible, when AIA reviews it, we'd like to be able to participate in that as well. So we might be able to work together more.
Rose, thank you for asking me. I always
Yes.
appreciate how you, on behalf of CCIDC, is always willing to talk, always willing to collaborate, always willing to work on these issues. To the board of directors, thank you for having me. Anytime you would like to have a conversation with me, invite me. If we want to have a conversation with my members, the practicing architects, let me know. Happy to make those arrangements. Thank you for allowing me to speak here.
Thank you, Mark. And sorry we didn't get to see your freshly pressed shirt.
It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Again, we really appreciate Mark speaking. We did have a comment from Rainey Sherman. The main issue with 5538 is the safety of the building, and unless horizontal exiting is part of the CID scope, CIDs can't provide these services. So thank you, Rainey, for your input on that. When we did meet the last time, we talked about the safety of the safety of the building issue. And at that time, the architect's concern was the new definition of non-seismic. Safety of the building wasn't as much of a concern for them, and it was now the new definition of non-seismic. So that's a conversation that we will continue to work with AIA and the architects on to see if we can come to some understanding with them. What I would like to say about that as well is that education piece is something that we really need to delve into. We have representatives on our board here, and I believe attending today, that are educators, and having a conversation with the educators on what requirements should be for preparing an interior designer to do the work appropriately to be able to be certified, I think is a conversation we really do need to get involved with. Karen, do you agree?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Like I was saying before, if you're trying to draw a wall partition and you've never seen it, you've never heard of it, how do you do that?
Right.
A lot of the students that are coming in to these programs from whatever other profession that they've had before, they only know what they know from like TV. And they're not explaining it and they're not educating it. So when they come in through the programs and you're telling them this, going through building codes, and they just look at you like, what are you talking about? So we need to do more on the education of how a building is structured. And it doesn't have to be architecturally, maybe one semester or quarter of construction, one semester of an architecture course, something that that all the trades and everything are going to be communicating with each other. It's a different language. So
definitely
they need to be all on the same page. And I've had students ask me stuff like, what is a stud? You should know that by now.
Definitely. And I can see where the AIA's concern, or the architect's concern, is currently they, interior design programs are teaching things like photography and art and colors and things like that, which is amazing, but it's really not the substance that needs to be provided for interior designers if they want to do the commercial things, the horizontal exiting, the drop ceilings, all of those things. So making certain that if a program doesn't have those, that students know these are the things that you really need to add on to that program. Hopefully we can work with programs to get some changes made, but if we can't, make sure that these are things that you're learning.
Well, and the reality is if the architects are telling us that our programs are lacking, we need to listen and figure out what they're lacking in and how. I mean, we have a not CCIDC, but us as professionals, right? We have a responsibility to our professionals to be, right? To make sure that they're getting the best education that they possibly can. So when they come out of school, they can get a job, right? Where they have background and they have knowledge so they can hit the ground running, right?
Correct.
Because not every interior designer or student is going to be like, oh, I just want to go pick colors or fabrics, which is all fine and dandy. And I love that. But we have to make sure that these students are getting the right education. And we were talking earlier before the meeting started. I mean, that's, you know, to me, that's something where I think we as an organization can be sending out information to these programs, letting them know what we're up against, what the profession is up against, and how they can best serve their students, and then also get the word out to the students too. But, you know, we were saying earlier, as so many universities are dropping their CETA accreditation, which to me is such a shame. But we need to look at that and figure out how we can fix that, or how we can support them so that these certified programs do not get dropped.
Right. And the interior design programs on a whole are decreasing throughout the school system. So it's not just the CETA, it's all the interior design programs, but for people who want them, being able to provide them an idea of what things they should be educating themselves on if they can't get it at their school, what other programs they can look to get these things, I think would be
Luke
beneficial.
just posted a comment saying that CETA has these courses in their requirements, and that very well may be, and that may also be why so many programs are dropping their accreditation, because they cannot fulfill that. But I think we as professionals and we as an organization need to remind these programs that no, this is a necessity. This is a basic requirement, right? This isn't just, you know, like the photography, like the, you know, all of the other sort of artistic or art related, you know, classes that students are expected to, you know, take, that these are also considered, that these also need to be considered core.
Also,
Right.
the fact that a lot of the programs are also telling them they're interior architecture programs.
Well,
There's
that's
a big,
another thing, right?
big,
Yeah, Cal Berkeley is the biggest offender on that.
yeah.
UCLA is as well. And how many people you get an interior architecture degree and you want to get a business card that says that, it's illegal to do so.
Exactly.
And in the program that they're teaching interior architecture, they're not preparing you to take the NCARB or the ARE. So you cannot call yourself an architect or use our interior
You have to
architecture.
have an actual architecture degree, not an interior
license.
architecture degree.
You have to have, exactly.
And that's
So
confusing the students, because I've
That's
had
very
many
confusing.
conversations with this
it's
about
confusing to current interior designers, because we see
that
it
too.
all over the place. I do interior architectural. No, you
I
don't.
do architectural drawings. No, you don't. You can't do
No,
that.
you can't do that. And please stop saying that.
Yeah, I know.
Because
So,
Well,
the fines are insane. I mean, we were just in our presentation, we showed somebody was fined. I think there was just $1,000 for using it, but we've seen up to $10,000 that people are being fined for calling themselves an interior architect or using the words interior architecture
yeah.
in their advertisement, in their thing. So it's
very confusing all around, and it needs to be addressed at some point.
Yeah. Janice says that we also need to separate residential construction from commercial construction. I don't even know, do they even teach residential construction
Yes, they
in
do.
schools? They teach commercial and it's very basic, but these are definitely things that also need to be
Fullerton College
included.
has a residential construction class and a commercial
Really?
construction class.
That's great.
And I find the problem with that is if you, in the grand scheme, you don't go to an architect who's in a
A
residential or
a
commercial, they
sure.
do whatever. And we have so many interior designers. When I first started with CCIDC and we had the big recession, a lot of the interior designers who were residential went to commercial because nobody was getting their houses redone. During the pandemic, all of the people who lost their jobs in commercial went back to residential because everybody's staying home and redoing their houses. So I think that you need to be educated on both, as
Definitely.
my view,
Right.
but you can't really differentiate because there's so much, people definitely work in what they're knowledgeable in or what they enjoy, but it doesn't mean that that's where they'll always be.
Right.
So you can't really make that
I don't think
differentiation.
she's saying that people need to sort of major in residential design or commercial. I believe she was saying that we need to differentiate in the classroom, meaning that maybe there is a separate residential construction class.
Certainly,
along with
yeah.
the
I agree,
commercial
George.
class. Yeah.
I think it's necessary, just, from a code perspective. I think we just did the IDEX exam questions again, and I noticed that there didn't seem to be that many related to construction other than code related specifics, but simple things like vocabulary or glossary, words that should be understood, like stud. I mean, that may be very elemental. But there are words and there are assemblies and things like a 1 hour constructed wall. I mean, who's really learning what that is?
Right.
Especially, I'm teaching at a junior college level, and the program just does not address construction unless the curriculum for a AA or a certification doesn't include things like that. And we're never going to win the battle, progressively, if the people that we turn out don't have the skill set. I think we're all in agreement with that. But I just want to add one point that's a little off this subject, but still in the same venue. I think it's important that we not ignore the realities of the fight of the architects being mainly a male-dominated field, with the interior design being, female-dominated, and how any prejudices from the past are nullified, so that we can engage in equity in terms of people making a living. Those kinds of things are discussed in one of these articles from IIDA. So that's an aside, but I don't want us to lose that in our argument, the economic impact. Okay.
Exactly. Definitely. Rainey said the reason the code section of the IDEX is so important, it's definitely important, but we've just expanded upon it immensely in this last revision. And the cut score, that's something that the cut score is determined by professional the subject matter experts, but it's also based on the psychometricians from the Scantron and the companies. So Rainey, we're looking forward to having you on that new committee so that you can help with that. But there are guidelines that have to be filled. A cut score is set for specific reasons. And so working together to do that, we're happy to have, and soon you'll see that anyone who wants to be part of that subject matter expert task force to help with that cut score and see what the process is, we're welcome to take you as volunteer to do so.
Rose, can you just, for the sake of our guests, explain what a cut score is?
Sure. So there's 150 questions that are provided on the IDEX exam. It used to be broken into just 3 parts, which was design standards, codes, and
ethics.
And ethics, business standards and ethics. It's now broken down into 11 parts because we expanded upon a lot of the codes portion of it, correct? Right. So the score is 150. The cut score in the past has been 102. Before the changes was 102. The reason they came up with that, the task force worked with the psychometricians on what makes a test valid and what the California state requirements are to make a test valid for certification for these reasons. So while to you and I, 102 seems quite low, there were reasons that that number was finally agreed upon. They went through each question, they looked at the history of how it had been passed. And so the psychometricians, who this is their job to do, were able to help figure that out. We're going to do that again. We're going to look at the questions that we now have and come up with a cut score. But it takes subject matter experts to help with the psychometricians to do that. So we will be sending out a survey. Anybody who wants to join to help to do that can be a part of that group.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that does. Janice is asking, how can they legally offer those programs? I believe she's referring to the interior architecture programs. I don't know. And I am surprised AIA has not come after all of these universities and filed suit, honestly. But there may be something
what it's going to take is not necessarily AIA, because I don't see them wanting to move forward with that. That's conversations we've had in the past.
Sure.
What it's going to take is it's going to take the students standing up and saying, wait a minute, you've offered me a program, you've offered me a degree, and I can't use that. It's illegal for me to use this title or degree. It's going to take the students standing up, being educated enough to understand that this is illegal and standing up to the schools. The reason the schools do it is because a lot of the schools that offer the interior architecture programs have architects teaching these courses, and they don't want to teach design courses. So they've changed the wording. And
it's
how
also
fair is that?
marketing too, Rose.
Exactly.
That's why people take that program, because they think it's going to give them additional qualifications, which it
doesn't.
may give them extra information, but it doesn't qualify them to be an architect. I teach the business practices class at the Cal Extension every few years, and they when I tell the students the truth about the title of their program, they usually come out with pitchforks and that, like, I'm the bad guy.
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's not a safe thing to bring up.
Exactly.
I'm wondering why we forgot to mention that when we had an architectural representative here today.
Right.
I'm sorry I didn't bring it up then.
Yeah.
No worries.
But I have a question as far as the legal part of it. If you are studying architecture in the school, you can write down that I have a M.Arch or master in architecture, or you can call yourself graduated architect or graduated in architecture. Because when you say I'm an architect, means I'm registered and I'm licensed. But you can say
you can only say that if you've graduated from an architectural program, not an interior architectural program, because there is technically no such thing. Unless you've taken the courses required to become an architect, then you cannot use that term even after you've graduated from the interior architecture program, because it doesn't prepare you to take the NCARB or the ARE. It doesn't prepare you for either of those. So you really can't use it. It's legally not allowed.
I find that very interesting because I took the classes at UCLA, which we know all the program is actually, you graduate through Cal Poly, and it's through the architecture program.
Yeah.
One at Cal Berkeley is a degree in interior architecture, but so they can put that on their resume. They just can't say I'm an architect.
Exactly.
But I don't think they realize that when they sign up for that program.
There was no mention of those in those classes, and I actually had to tell them, no, you can't call yourself an architect
or an interior architect.
No, you can't. Exactly.
There's no
can't
such
use
thing.
yeah. So,
but they're still going to use it because they paid a fortune to graduate from that program.
Sure.
Rainey states, if the CID professional standards are going to gain traction with the AIA and the state, our standards have to be as high as possible. Correct. If you're talking about on the exam, correct. If you're talking about what we're discussing here, I think that, talking about the education piece of this and putting that together are going to make the standards higher. If again, you're referring to the IDEX exam, then please join and be an SME that's on the task force that sets the standard, that you can ensure that it will be as high as possible. All right, I think we need to move on to keep this going. Next, we have the chair's report.
That's me. Awesome. So this past year, I mean, I really can't believe that a year has gone by as your chair. And I will say that I am very proud of where we currently are. I feel like we've been in a survival mode for the past year, dealing with COVID and everything. But we've come out the other side, at least where we are today. We know that COVID is not over. I don't need to go into any of that, but we are here and we are standing and we are still doing good things. So my goals for this year, I have a few goals. One is I want to make sure that we are as fiscally sound as we can possibly be. And part of that Rose mentioned is putting together some sort of sponsorship program where we could be generating more income. I want to make sure that we have enough reserve that if anything like what we've been going through happens again, that we have that buffer. The other thing is the outreach that I spoke to earlier. I want to make sure that we're providing value, not just to our CIDs, but also to potential CIDs. And also, I want to make sure that we're positioning ourselves as the experts in professional advancement. And so that's something that we'll be working on as far as marketing goes and outreach. And speaking of outreach, I know obviously because of what we've been going through that we haven't been able to reach out to more CIDs or potential CIDs. I did have the opportunity to speak to ASID California Peninsula chapter last week and present to them everything about CCIDC and CIDs. There were 42 of us present, so not including myself and a couple other speakers. There were 39 ASID members that were interested in becoming CIDs. So I definitely think there is a need for us to be reaching out to the professional organizations, to the schools, to letting people know what we're about and what the benefit is of becoming a CID and how they go about doing that. So we'll see with these 39 people that I presented to, how many will actually move forward. I hope they all will. Everybody seemed very excited and had really great questions. But I definitely think that we should be reaching out to ASID chapters throughout the state, IIDA chapters throughout the state, NKBA chapters, and offering them this, yes, people may be feeling some Zoom fatigue, but every organization is struggling to find content, and we have content. So that is definitely something that I want to be working on so that, excuse me, so that we could build our CID numbers to make sure that we are providing value. And that's pretty much it. I mean, in a nutshell, it's been a pleasure being the chair this past year, and I look forward to 22 and beyond. So I will turn it back over to you, Rose, for any unfinished business. Oh, and let me answer Janice's question. So her question is, what is the advantage of taking IDEX exam versus NCIDQ? So the IDEX exam is the only exam recognized to become a CID. So you have to pass the IDEX to become a CID. NCIDQ is a national exam that is recognized by professional organizations, become a professional member. I am NCIDQ, so I'm a professional member of ASID. There are also, Rose, correct me here, are there some states that recognize NCIDQ for their certification?
There's 4 states total that use
Okay.
it for a practice act. The reason
Right.
that they're able to be used in those states is because they don't have their own specific building code. They use the
Exactly.
International Building Code,
Right.
where
And the
California, we
reason
have
why
our own.
we don't recognize it is, in a nutshell, the state said that that's not testing enough, and we need testing on California codes. So that is why we don't recognize that.
Right, exactly. It doesn't, and there's another list of reasons that when we put together our sunset review packet, we had to list reasons. And so there's many reasons it doesn't meet state guidelines for a lot of things. And it also doesn't test on California codes and regulations. So, and the state of California doesn't want us to use 2 exams to become certified. It's a long process that we've gone through, but so IDEX is for certification in California. If you want to become a member of IIDA or ASID, the NCIDQ is great. And we don't think the 2 are mutually exclusive.
No, not
We
at
don't
all.
think you have to take one or the other. I mean, we look at it as, when you're becoming a doctor, you get your MD first. That's kind of like starting with certification in California. From there, you pick your specialty. What is it you like to do? Residential? Well, now we're speaking again to the interior design, but do you like residential, commercial? There's an organization that's there for you that will help you with other things and be more supportive. So you start with the basic and then you move from there into your specialization. So we definitely promote people taking the NCIDQ, the NKBA test, the CQID, or RIDCQ as well. There's so many things that can help you. It's just how you choose to expand your practice or how you choose to grow. So we start with your basic, which is certification, and then move from there. So that's kind of our view on it. Anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next section, which is unfinished business. The first thing we're going to talk about is the sunset review. We have submitted the report. We submitted that report in December, got it in well before the deadline. And now from here, they're reviewing our report. They're going over everything that questions that we answered, all of that, and they will give us a date for our hearing. So generally the hearings have been in March, but the whole process, because of COVID and everything, has been kind of, needed to be changed a little bit. So I don't know whether or not it will be in March again this year. So we'll see. We haven't heard the actual date yet. When we have the hearings, anybody who would like to speak, I don't know if they're going to be via Zoom or how they're going to be handled, or they'll be in person, but we will definitely need to garner support from the people that support CCIDC and certification to speak on our behalf. And we will be sending out more information via social media, emails, and such on what that looks like once we have more information. Again, we will be contacting anyone for support. On the IDEX exam update, the revisions are complete for the questions that we changed. The only revisions needing to be made are, again, all of the code-based questions are being reviewed by the International Code Council. They will be the ones working with us on our code questions to make sure that there's no changes. So if in the code changes, one of the questions we wrote is now going to have a different answer, or it's going to be different because of the code change, they'll find that out. Their subject matter experts will find that out and put that question up for review. Then if there are any of those changes, The ICC will work with subject matter experts from CCIDC to work together to find new questions. It's been a great process. The updated exam was given in October for the first time. There definitely were a lot of updates and changes. I know we have some people in the audience that took the exam. Again, the final cut score for that will be determined by the subject matter experts working with Scantron to develop what's the best practice for that. If you would like to join the task force, where I have a survey that'll come up that you can take and give us your information. The first 2 meetings for working on the cut score will be March 15th and March 22nd. And I believe they're each 2 hours long. They will be via Zoom, so you don't have to go anywhere. They'll start the process in March, but they will also not be able to finish the process until after the May exam because they need more statistical data from this upcoming test to be able to make a fair scoring. There's, let's see if I have it here. Yes, here's the application for the task force for the test. So if you would like to take that, please join in. We need 6 to 10 more subject matter experts. We have some that have already joined in, but we definitely need more. So if you're able to do that, that'd be wonderful. And that's all I think I have for old business, the updates and the sunset review.
New business.
So George, if you want to help me with this one.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is, I would say, a draft of a sponsorship package. So the idea is we would be reaching out to potential sponsors. These would more than likely be vendors, maybe organizations that want to have some sort of connection to our CIDs. And here are a list of some options that somebody can pay sponsorship for, an article in our quarterly e-newsletter, scholarship opportunities, logos and links, logos on our homepage, logos on marketing publications, basically as they are sponsoring, right? Excuse me. Recognition on CCIDC's social media. You know, as a nonprofit, we are limited to as far as what we can offer a sponsor. We cannot be endorsing any sponsor. So, you know, that's definitely something that we need to be careful of, but nothing that is undoable. And there's different sponsorship levels. I think we may want to sort of take this and distill it down, maybe only have 3 levels or 4 level. Well, there's 4, or there's 3 here, but then there's event and CEU sponsors, scholarship sponsors, that kind of thing. So yes, Rose.
I think for the basis of it having the like platinum, gold, silver type thing, and then if someone wants to be an event sponsor, having those things available so that they know how they can also do that. But the main 3 would just be, you know, that would be the main focus, I think.
Right. And, you know, sort of things that we've been discussing is, you know, what types of events would we want to be offering our CID? So that's definitely something that we will be working on in this coming year as well. So I'm just looking at questions too. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it as far as our sponsorship package. This is a work in progress. And yeah.
George, I think there's one thing that I skipped over. I apologize, in the old business. And that is the working with the LADBS, because we've talked in the past about having a group get together to do that. And, you know, in all honesty, with between COVID, the IDEX exam revision, and then sunset review that were upcoming, we haven't had an opportunity to move forward with that the way we would like to do that. But I think for a goal in this new year is definitely to get that group together. Hutan had expressed interest, since he works with that, to help head that up. So hopefully he will continue to be able to do that. But I'd like to get some dates put on the board as soon as possible, that we could get a group together to discuss the issue with the LADBS, and in San Francisco, not just LA, but most,
Sure.
So Hutan, is that something moving forward you'd still be interested in helping?
Yes,
Okay, so
100%.
I would definitely like to see a meeting happen in February. So if you could send some dates out to me, let's get that going in on the schedule now that those other things are kind of wrapping themselves up a little bit. We need to put our focus into working with them, with the LADBS, to get, plan submission a little bit more streamlined. Okay.
Linda's asking about getting a copy of the sponsorship opportunities. Yes, once we flesh this out and finalize it, this will probably live on our website as well, but we could definitely get this to you.
Definitely, once we agree on what it will look like in the final revision, we're going to have a sponsorship page. So a page for all of our sponsors, and that will be available on our website for sure.
Yes.
So do we want to do a Q&A again?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay. Linda Sullivan said she became a member of IBD, which is now IIDA. I believe IBD and IB something else formed together to make IIDA. She was grandfathered in because she was a store designer and a member of ISP, the Institute of Store Planners. Okay. Deanie says the region California has an interior designer laws so that building officials could identify competent professionals qualified to work with the building life safety, flammability, and disabled access. LADBS has a restrictive signature policy. Has the CCIDC, well, I think we've answered that we're going to make that our focus. Ida, I hope it's Ida Naftel. What program would we recommend for preparation to pass the IDEX exam? There are several, it depends. You have to meet the qualifications in order to sit for the IDEX exam. So if you have not done that, there's a list of schools on our website that are all accredited so that you could take courses from them. If you're looking for an actual course to do IDEX prep because you've already met the qualifications, then again, that information is available on the website as well. There's some in-person classes, and then there's also a couple of online courses that you can take for IDEX prep. There's a study guide available as well. So, okay. Anyone else have any questions?
There's a couple of hands raised. I don't know if that's still relevant.
Let's see here. I have to stop sharing in order to answer those, sorry. So Janice, was your question answered? I'm gonna let her. You should ask, you can unmute yourself and if you still need to.
Okay, partially the question was answered, but I did want to make a comment about the term architecture, the interior architecture and all of that. I recently retired from a major manufacturer, and my title that was given to me by the company included, I was architectural design and sales manager. So that I didn't assign that to myself, but the state of California, the Architecture License Board, that's who goes after these violations. They sent me a letter. Not only was it for my title for the company that I worked for, but they also attached it to my personal interior design business, which I had never, ever in my entire interior design career
Wow.
reported to be an interior architecture or had any reference to architecture at all. And they said, if I didn't resolve it within 30 days, it was $1,000 fine and possibly a week in jail. And I don't know, it went on and on. And so, but I immediately called and tried to speak with them and explain the situation. And I said, this is a huge global corporation. And by the way, there's about 20, 25 other managers just like me in the state of California. They didn't get tagged. I got tagged because I was active in the AIA Central Valley chapter. And I had worked on a symposium that was going to take place through SMUD. So, and because of my title, and I had been acknowledged at a chapter meeting for being involved in the symposium, which by the way, never got off the ground. We never actually did it because of things happened. That's a whole nother story. But so the point is I had to go through every bit of social media, every single thing that was associated with me to try and remove anything that had the word architecture in it. So I would say that even if I would not, there's no word use or form of the word that contains architect or architecture or architectural in it that is sufficient to pass the California state standard. So this is why I really question how it's even legal for them to have interior architecture courses or programs or anything like that. And, I was very scared and I was really offended that they attached it to my personal business. So that, it's just, it was an eye opener for me, certainly. And I just thought it was a cautionary tale that was worth sharing with everybody so that it is a real thing. And the other thing too that I just wanted to comment on is if you're looking at the building officials in LA, I would highly suggest that you also include San Jose because they will not pass anything.
Yeah, San Jose, San Francisco, they're all included in that. It just
Okay.
part of the focus was LADBS, but thank you very much for your input. I'm going to go
Thanks.
ahead and I know that Rainey wanted to ask a question. If you'd like to speak, if you'd like to ask your question in person, there's an option to raise your hand. If you look down at the bottom, it says raise your hand and we'll call on you. So Rainey has a question. Oh, whoops. Oh, sorry. Where'd you go, Rainey?
She accidentally dropped off. Maybe she'll hopefully come back in.
Rainey, would you still like to? Here, I'll allow you. Hi, Rainey. If you unmute yourself. Hello? Yes.
Thank you. And thank you guys for your service to the board. Those of us that have served there appreciate your dedication and time commitment. Couple of questions that I've got. Where are you on adding the IIDA rep to the board? That question.
She's going to be voted in just a few minutes.
Very good. Okay. And you don't have to tell me who it is, but is she from Northern California or Southern California?
Southern California.
Okay, very good. One other thing on the professional standards. This is a drum I have beaten for 30 years, and you guys have heard this a number of times. But you guys all collectively hold the keys to the standards for the CID certification. That's what you are supposed to be doing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Part of your thing. So part of that is the qualifications and high standards for the exam. Part of that is high qualifications for your board actions. And part of that is for entry requirements to the CID certification designation. those are all under your charge. And you, if in my view, if you want to gain traction with AIA and the state, you may have to take it up a notch. And I think you've had that discussion. I like the direction that it's going. I always love Mark when Mark is the marketing guy from AIACC. He sugarcoats a lot of things. Some of you may or may not know that I've been in this profession a long time. I was part of the original negotiating team representing IBD, which became IIDA, for the Accords back in the late 80s, where if you ever wanted to be as humiliated as you could be by what you thought was a fellow professional, you should have sat in those meetings. It was very depressing. So this step by AIA is a step forward. I think it's a good step forward. It's not the end all, but it is certainly perhaps the beginning of that. A couple of last things. I don't want to come off as this sounding petty, Rose, but on your website, you have CCIDC in quotes, not in quotes, but in business for 30 years. I take exception to the words in business. You've been providing professional standards for 30 years. It sounds like it's a haberdashery store that's been in business for 30 years. So if that comment gains traction with any of you, I would adjust the words. I like the celebration. I think it's great. Obviously, I was there for the beginning and love to see that we've been around 30 years. I just object to the words in business. And then finally, the LADBS committee. I'm not going to beat you up on how long we've been thinking about this, but the point is, I like the direction. I like that we can get it done this year. Huton certainly is a very good chair. I don't want to blindside you, Patricia, but Patricia should be on that committee in my view because of her background. And then the other components of that committee are certified interior designers who actually submit plans to LADBS and San Jose and San Francisco, because they know the war stories. They know how they get beaten up every time they go to submit plans. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you very much for the platform.
Rainey, before you get off, I have a question for you, sir. So when you say that, like this is our opportunity to step things up in regards to AIA, what do you specifically mean, or what do you specifically see that we can do?
Well, AIA looks at, keep in mind, I've been there for all the negotiations through the 30 years. I know their tactics. And Mark is a very good spokesman. In front of you, he will sugarcoat everything. And when you're gone, watch your back, because he's not your friend. So, and he represents people who are not your friend. Now, I think that's changing, George. I think the younger architects are more amenable to the prospect of qualified interior designers who understand code to be part of the level playing field, in quotes. So to me, to answer your question directly, the most important thing is the code section of the exam. Obviously, with the International Code Council writing those for you, that's a huge cachet for that, because no one can argue. They can't argue that someone in the back room of a drapery shop wrote standards. So that's very important. And Rose has heard me say this. I think it's crazy that the cut score allows people in with a D+. If you take it on a school type atmosphere where it's an A, B, C, or D, I'm not advocating that you have to have an A to pass the exam, but it certainly should be higher than a D+ or a C-. And so that's what I'm advocating, that we bring it up to a little higher standard, because then we can go in front of them and say, hey, people have to pass this, and they have to pass it with a responsible percentage. Then we can, and we believe they are well qualified to practice. So sorry for a
Right.
long-winded answer.
Well,
No,
we look forward to having you on the task force, Rainey, so then you can help with the process and understand the process. I mean, I know you understand it, but you know what I mean, help with that process. So make sure that you sign up with, well, you already have, I'm going to hold you to being part
And
of this.
just giving me the date, so I'll get them on my calendar now. I assume will that be during the day, or will that be late afternoon? Do you have any idea?
Usually they try and do it in the late afternoon because a lot of people work. So as soon as I have the time, they haven't sent me the times. They've only sent me the 2 dates. So as
Okay.
soon as we have that, we will post that everywhere for everybody who's signed up to join us.
Very good.
Thank you, Rainey.
I'm looking forward to it.
thank you.
Okay. So next,
Anybody else have a question or would like to speak? Just real quickly, let's just offer one last go through. And it doesn't seem like there's anybody, so.
okay. Sorry. Next is our strategic planning. One of the things that the Sunset Review Committee asked is how often we do sunset or strategic planning, and they'd like to see it on a more regular basis. So we put together some, and I asked them, is this going to have to be like a SWOT or a thing every time we do it? And they said, no, as long as you're holding it on a regular basis and you're putting your goals together. So we put together some topics that need to be addressed for the upcoming year. So the goals are determine our strategic position, prioritize our objectives, develop the strategic plan, and then execute and manage our plan and review and revise the plan. So if we kind of go through this now and come up with ideas of how we were going to move forward with it, then each year we can review it, revise it, and make sure that we're executing it accordingly. So the first topic is on financial planning. We're looking at revenues through COVID. We were able to have 2 PPP loans, one per year, that assisted us in making up for that downfall from the people that weren't able to renew because of the COVID situation. We won't be able to get that again, but we're looking at, based on the numbers from last year, we're looking at people starting to come back. So we're going to plan our budget accordingly. We're going to plan to, we're not back all the way yet. We don't have the PPP loan, but we want to look at that budget somewhere in between, and not only for the income that we're taking in, but for the amount of money that we're expending for the year. An increase in revenue. Another question on the Sunset Review is, when was the last time you raised your rates, and how often are you going to do that? Our big thing is especially in the COVID time, we can't just continually raise the rates, but honestly, the actual rate for certification hasn't changed since, I believe, 2007. Or 2008, I'm sorry. So it went from $225 to $250 in 2008 and hasn't been changed since then. We did introduce the different levels of certification in 2017. So it went from just, everybody got a stamp, everybody got a this, and it was one price, to you can pick and choose which is the best level for you, and offered more ideas. If you don't need a stamp, then you can get just an ID card, that sort of thing. But we didn't change the price of actual certification. So we reviewed it and felt that this is a time we definitely need to raise our fees. And we tried to keep that, again, reasonable by looking at the amount of money that other things like contractor state license board and the architects board, are we in line with that, or we don't want to be way more than they would be as licensing organizations? So that's how to determine the price increases that we came up with for the year.
Right. And, I mean, this is definitely something that we need to put on our calendar, that we should decide, when do we want to revisit this? Is it on a yearly basis? Is it every other year? Because to wait the length that we did, to me, is way too long to be looking at this, right? And I think we should also be polling our CIDs to find out, where they see the value in their certification. And if we were to raise the rates, would that cause them to drop certification, or would they think that it's in line with what it is that we want to do, right?
Right. And
So,
and in those years where the rates were not increased, didn't mean it wasn't reviewed. It just meant that in the review, they felt that for whatever reason, raising that price wasn't warranted, wasn't, so.
sure, absolutely. And I guess what I'm saying is, as a board, it would be great to be able to review those. And
I think that that's something that we should do every year at the strategic planning meeting, is review it,
Right.
see how it is. And, we can send out polls ahead of time before the meeting to see what information we can garner, but definitely that's what the strategic planning meeting would cover.
great.
Our marketing plan, again, we need to review our social media. We have a great presence out there. The numbers are great. But the engagement, we need to look at the type of engagement that we're getting, and is this appropriate for where we're at? Currently, our social media company covers Instagram and Facebook. We do LinkedIn and Twitter. We just take it and copy it to those. But we need to look for something that would be more all-inclusive, and the engagement type is, Carly has done an amazing job of helping to refocus the engagement type. It's wonderful to have a young person on your staff that can think about those things, but we really do need to look at a more comprehensive social media presence and platform, and how are we using it, and making sure that it's okay. Again, sponsorship, we talk about that. Possibly offering webinars or CEUs. That's a tricky thing, because we want to be able to provide value added for our CIDs, but at what cost? So that's something that we need to review. Our student outreach, we would like to look at increasing that, not just to the schools here in California, but to the surrounding states, because a lot of us have children that left the state to go to school who plan to come back, or there's students from other states. And looking at the states around us that don't have a practice act, like Arizona, but those surrounding states that don't have some sort of practice or title act that we could market to, and just get the word expanded out there. And also continue our outreach and expanding our outreach to the different professional organizations. There are several that we have great relationships, always in NKBA. Every year we're speaking at their different programs, several of the different chapters, but getting out to more of the chapters and building a better relationship with some of the professional organizations that we've worked with in the past. How do we do that? How do we speak to that? That definitely needs to be part of the marketing plan for this year. Again, the IDEX exam revision update schedule. Every time the codes are updated, ICC will be reviewing and working with us to update those questions. But we need to make sure that we have another, like we did this year, another revision planned to go through the entire exam again. And that's something we'd have to budget for within the next few years, just because we want to make sure that, this review, we found questions that asked about phone booths and fax machines. those happen to be in our not in the actual test, but in the item bank. But still, we need to make sure that we're reviewing it a little more frequently than we had been. And so setting dates for when we'd like to see these things updated again. And it should coincide with a new code year. Our sunset review, the status is we gone over and updating legislation. We'd like to see those items spelled out in our law of the things that certified interior designers are doing, but it is going to take more meetings with stakeholders like AIA, which is a great stakeholder, but CalBO and the Architects Board and other professional organizations to make sure that how we go about that and what the perception is, how do we change that? And I think that that's something that we need to start setting more of those up each year to make sure that we do want to change the legislation and the language. There won't be opposition, but hopefully, people going neutral, such as AIA. For our future planning, again, the meetings for LADBS and the other building departments like San Jose and San Francisco. But we also need to look at some legal possibilities. As Patricia mentioned, the interior design profession is predominantly females and members of the LGBTQ community. Because of that, we are, the things that the architects are trying to do, architects and building officials who are predominantly male, those things, how does that work? How does it, they're keeping us from doing the work that we're allowed to by law do, submitting plans, not allowing us to do that. What are the legal ramifications for that? And possibly we have a new member of our board who is a legal counsel, so maybe we can see what our options are, to find out what the legal ramifications are, what legal opportunities do we have to look into this, not just meeting wise. We also need to increase our beneficial alliances, becoming a member of the League of Cities, and thank you to Deanie for the information on women in construction, building those alliances so that when we look into all of this, we have the ability to have allies that can then understand our position and what we're doing. In case you don't know, the League of Cities is kind of the meetings for the mayors in the state of California. And so having them understand what we're looking to do, mayors understanding permit avoidance, and your cities are experiencing high permit avoidance, but your building officials won't allow certified interior designers to submit plans to your city in order to do work that the law says we can do. So those are what we're talking about with those beneficial alliances and how we would like to work towards that. So that's kind of our plan for the year, the items that we want to focus on. The board will, again, determine our position and figure out what are the objectives so that we can carry out the strategic plan for the year. I guess we can ask if there's any questions about that. If anyone, I see some hands raised.
Linda has a question or a comment. She says, an idea, a benefit of membership could be more CEUs. Many manufacturers have them for lunch and learn and trade shows, or even meeting events, and CEUs have to be generic. CIDs could charge a fee and have them available to CCIDC members. Yes, that is definitely something that we have discussed, not necessarily charging people for that, but if we charge the vendor to put a CID, to put a CEU on for our CIDs, that could be another way for us to generate revenue. But this is definitely something that we've been talking about doing, especially CEUs that have to do with code changes, Title 24, that kind of things, stuff that, definitely benefits us. I don't think we necessarily want to sponsor
Color change,
right, on color of the year or designing a spa bathroom. I mean, those are all great and it's important, yet doesn't necessarily align with who we
Our
are.
purpose. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like ICC has a ton of different preferred providers that will do CEUs for us, but those do cost money, and we would like to, that's one of the reasons we're looking at, with sponsorship, somebody who, a company would like to sponsor a code change CEU, we could provide that at a reduced cost
Right.
versus having to, expend upon that. So, Rainey, did you need to speak again? I'll put you on here.
Yeah, give me a primer on,
Pardon?
I think, give me a primer on what, sorry, I was doing two things at once.
Oh, you had your hand up, so I was seeing if you needed to speak again.
Oh, my screen says lower hand. Oh, okay. I think I have no comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Well, I think that this will be ongoing, and we will work
So
on.
there's a question here. It says, can you cover on the resale practices relationship with license? I'm not understanding what that means.
So resale licensing is, you're getting your resale license. So that's interior designers who want to resale
goods.
Yes, resale goods. So I think that's something totally separate. I mean, doesn't have to do anything with practice, and people don't need a resale license in order to
be a CID.
Be an interior designer. So I don't know what you would like, if you could clarify maybe.
Maybe clarifying the publication 35 under the tax part. It used to be Board of Equalization. Now it's
right.
Yeah,
they have a big old pamphlet. It's many pages. So
yes, every interior designer can have a just resale license. Doesn't relate to be CIDs or registered or not. No.
Right. Exactly. All right. We'll move on.
Oquan clarified. One of the architects mentioned that interior designers making money is jeopardizing the license of practice. Oh.
That, that's kind of an old AIA view on things, is that, interior designers are taking work away from them. It's not. We don't in the scope of work we do, we're not taking work, and there's architects that don't want to do the work of interior designers. That's why they have them on their staff. I mean, so I don't know.
The non-structural, non-seismic, that's part of the description of our practice, means that we're not directly competing with architects.
Right.
Where we only do work that's non-structural, non-seismic.
Exactly.
Maybe if that helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Luke had made a comment. Sorry, Luke had made a comment, and then the comment went that he was hoping that San Francisco DBI will be accepting plans from CID soon.
so
yes.
we hope that as well. And so I think that there's two things with that. The group that we want to put together will definitely cover San Jose, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. But we need to change the language and how we're approaching this, because accepting a plan is up to the purview of the building official. So plan submission is what we're looking to make uniform, is being allowed to submit plans to these building departments versus them accepting. I know it's semantics, but it really does make a difference, because in working with Calbo and the building officials that we've met there and the ICC chapters that we've attended, that's a big misnomer for them. Well, you want us to accept your plans, but we can't because of this. It's like, no, we want you to allow us to submit the plans for review without immediately asking for an architect stamp. Even though the law says we can submit these plans, you see the plans and immediately you tell us we need an architect stamp. So I think that's the thing that we need to focus on, is changing the language, and how we look at that is allowing a uniform plan submittal versus uniform plan acceptance. And I think that will make a big difference in how the building departments view this.
And I'll just add, Luke would love it if you wanted to get involved up here in Northern California. So I think we'll be reaching out to you.
Definitely. I mean, if you want to make change, you need to make change happen. So anybody who has great ideas or whatever, we will definitely love to have you participate in these meetings so that we can affect change together. So I think we're ready to move on. We have 2 new board members. One is an IIDA representative. So I'll start. I make a motion to approve Julissa Garcia as a candidate to fill the open IIDA director seat, to sit on the CCIDC board of directors for the first term of 3 years and a subsequent second term of 3 years should the candidate wish to continue. Do I have a second for that? Carol, thank you. Okay, so open for discussion. Julissa, are you still there?
She's here.
She was, I know she had a.
Yes, hi, I'm here. I'm kind of mobile because of the
Okay.
event tonight.
No worries. If you want to go ahead and just give us a little brief rundown of your history with certification and such, and we'd love to get to know a little bit more about you.
Of course, thank you for the opportunity, first of all, and the flexibility, of course, because like I said, I'm mobile today. My name is Julissa Garcia. I'm from San Diego. I've been in the industry as a designer since 2000. Started my own business in 2012. I've been CID since 2014 or 15, I can't recall. And my main focus has always been commercial design. I'm a current member of the International Code Council, the San Diego chapter. I'm the secretary, I'm in the board, excuse me. I'm the secretary for them. And I really enjoy being part of that chapter because I've always felt, just like everyone else, in the call and in the board for CCIDC, that we need to educate, our building officials, even our clients too, on what an interior designer does. And so when I was invited to ICC San Diego by one of the board members at the time to participate. And, obviously I was honored and happy to see that, they were wanting to include, a designer as part of their team. So that's a little bit about me. If you have any questions, please feel free.
See. Oh, Rainey, we'll get to your input. Is it regarding Julissa or is it regarding something else? We'll get to other questions after we get through this. We'll have another question and answer section. So we'll, since there is no more discussion on Julissa, all in favor of approving Julissa as the candidate to fill the open IID director seat, please say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried for Julissa. Welcome, Julissa.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is it's very exciting for me. I appreciate it.
We're very excited to have you.
Thank you.
George, if you'll do the next motion, please.
Sure. So we have so I make a motion to approve Nilüfer, and I'm gonna totally.
Nilüfer
Nilüfer
Razvanpour.
Razvanpour as a candidate to fill the open public director seat to sit on the CCIDC Board of Directors for a first term of 3 years and a subsequent second term of 3 years, should the candidate wish to continue to serve. Can we get a second?
I second it.
Great. On seconds.
Discussion.
Yeah, discussion. So Nilüfer is a practicing attorney. I know she could not be here today. And Rose and I met with her. She was referred to us through Houghton. Very excited to be a part of the board. And this is something that we've been looking for, is to also diversify our board. So, but we can open it up for any questions or comments from the board. Anybody?
I think a lot of us were on that call, but it's nice to
Right.
have an attorney or someone proficient in the law to be, round out our board, so that when we have questions about legal issues, she can direct us accordingly. So it's good to have someone. We have had someone for quite a while, but then Sherry was termed out, so it's nice to have that again.
Yeah, it is. Awesome. All right, why don't we take a vote? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Perfect. All right, so let's take a new roll call. Taylor,
All right. George Brazil,
present.
Julissa Garcia. I know she's here. Maybe she's busy. We see you. Houghton Hamadani,
Present.
Carol Lamkins,
She's present, but she's muted.
Patricia Johnson,
Here.
and then we're not expecting Eduardo.
Eduardo,
Nalvar.
yeah, no. I'll fix that.
I'm
Karen
sorry,
Min-
I'm here, Julissa. I was muted. I apologize.
Karen Menches,
Here.
Deborah Ogden,
Here,
and then we know Nilüfer is not here today. Taylor Stead, I'm here. Linda Thomas.
Nope.
And then Christiana White is not here also.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's do a quick one more question and answer, because I know Rady had comments before we
Adjourn.
adjourn. Correct, participants. Here we go.
could I just say I'm really pleased with the august qualifications of our 2 new board members, and welcome, Julissa.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Just a second here.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Thanks. I actually do have something to say now. A historical perspective for you guys who none of you were probably alive when this happened, but I was. The beginning of California licensure in the 60s began with the resale license. The people who were practicing interior design at that time thought that that was the right thing to do, and they would start with the resale license as a qualification for being a qualified and professional interior designer. That gives you some historical perspective on the resale question. The issue with the plan submittal, you're right, Rose, it is semantics. Anyone in California, even a homeowner, anybody can submit a plan. Anybody. It's whether, and I think, and perhaps Patricia and Houghton can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have to accept the plan submittal. They don't have to approve those plans, unless they deem that that the scope of work that's outlined in the plans is provided by an appropriate professional standard or level. And therefore, when we submit, those of us that do it on a regular basis, and LADBS is the example I'm going to point out, we submit, and if I change a door in a corridor, I have to have an architect sign it. Even if I move it, it's the same door. They want an architect stamp. I've argued with them for 30 years over this. We got some traction early, then it kind of went back and forth, and now it's gone into the dark hole again. So it's essentially anyone could submit. It's the approval process, whether they wish to have either an architect's signature or, and some of you may know, an architect can't submit any plan for a hospital, as an example, without an engineering stamp, without a structural engineering stamp along with it. So we're not. It's ultimately the building department and the decision on what they approve. So that's my comment.
Correct.
And if I may say, welcome, Alicia. Looking forward to your service on the board.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rainey. I believe that a lot of the complaints that we get is the building officials in those districts are not allowing certified interior designers to submit their plans, and by law they're supposed to, but they don't allow them to submit them without immediately requesting it. It doesn't matter whether it's non-structural, non-seismic, whether you move a door, whether you don't do those things. Their issue is immediately they're being told you need to have an architect stamp. And that happens in LA, San Francisco, and San Jose. So it is about the submission portion of it, clarifying and understanding, getting them to understand where what we are allowed to submit for without having to have a stamp. So I think
Rose, that's not been my experience with LADBS. They'll accept it, but then I get a correction sheet back saying that I have to have an architect stamp.
okay. Well, then you actually have a better experience than some that we go through this. But I think it's working together. When you use the word acceptance with building officials, they immediately are like, I don't have to accept that, but you know what I mean?
Right. They don't.
Right. So working on that together to come up with what will work best to provide a more uniform platform is what we'll work with the group.
Well, it goes back to that reasonable interpretation of what the safety of a building is.
Right.
So to some building officials, a color of a paint on a wall is a safety of a building. I'm being absurd, of course, but that's not far afield from what I've seen in some building departments. It's basically it gets down to horizontal exiting. If we cannot provide horizontal exiting, we cannot provide services in commercial buildings. End of discussion.
Right. And that's definitely something we'll work towards. And what we found in the last few stakeholder meetings where the AIA professionals were there, they weren't so much concerned with the words safety of the building. They were concerned with that new definition of seismic. And we were told in a meeting by an architect that if you have to hang a picture on a wall that's over 15 pounds, you need an architect.
Well, they keep moving the goalposts. Come on.
Exactly.
That's a tactic they've used for 30 years.
Of course.
Exactly. So when we went in with our argument for safety of the building and had everything ready to discuss, the history of why this isn't, they're like, oh, we're not worried about the safety of the building. We're worried about this definition of seismic. It's like, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And the explanations again by those people that were there were, it wasn't just Mark. We actually had members of the AIA board, so it was quite an interesting experience.
Well, if you get the zealots in front of you, you're not going to get any traction. You have to get reasonable people, to participate from all sides.
Well, even Calbo, we got word from Calbo and the architects board that, wow.
Yeah, but
They
there is
were
one
they were
other thing.
surprised.
There is one other thing too. When the size or the painting on the wall is 50 pounds, then we don't need an architect. We need a structure engineer. We have many projects that we designed restaurants and they have a hood. And definitely, I think the certified interior designer can hire consultants, and we hire a structure engineer, and that part of the building and safety is done.
Yes,
But structurally, we have consultants. If we go through Title 24 of mechanical, electrical, we have consultants.
yes.
As a certified interior designers, as a leader of the project, we can hire as many that we want, all these consultants to help us. We don't need an architect. That's the thing that they need to be clear about it.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Well, Rainey, thank you again, and we look forward to you participating to work with us on these issues. And again, we'll have a meeting set up. We'll get with Hutan, and by next week, we'll have a meeting set up for sometime in February for the building department task force, we'll call it at this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Deanie said in 2012, LADBS said that the CBC tells them they can only accept plans from registered design professionals. That was never followed up on by CCIDC. I believe that it was, and there were meetings at that time, and the building department head at that time was the one that had an argument with it. I was not part of that, but I can look more into that and get the information, but it was followed up with by CCIDC. Anyone else? If we don't have any further questions, we can go ahead and end this meeting.
Awesome. So I make a motion to adjourn